Today we're reading reference out of As Bill Sees It to a spiritual awakening or experience. Jerry's going to start out on page 2.
Okay, in God's hands, when we look back, we realize that the things which came to us when we put ourselves in God's hands were better than anything we could have planned. My depression deepened unbearably, and finally, it seemed to me as though I were at the very bottom of the pit. For the moment, the last vestige of my proud obstinacy was crushed. All at once, I found myself crying out, if there is a God, let him show himself. I am ready to do anything. Suddenly the room lit up with a great white light. It seemed to me in the mind's eye that I was on a mountain and that a wind, not of air but of spirit, was blowing. And then it burst upon me that I was a free man. Slowly, the ecstasy subsided. I lay on the bed, but now for a time I was in another world, a new world of consciousness, all about me and through me there was a wonderful feeling of presence, and I thought to myself, so this is the God of the preachers.
Okay, I'm going to read on page 8, and then Jerry's going to do 85. A new life. In sobriety, all that we are to expect of a spiritual awakening? No, sobriety is only a bare beginning. It is only the first gift of the first awakening. If more gifts are to be received, our awakening has to go on. As it does go on, we find that bit by bit, we can discard the old life, the one that did not work, for a new life which can and does work under any conditions whatever. Regardless of worldly success or failure, regardless of pain or joy, regardless of sickness or health, or even death itself, a new life of endless possibilities can be lived if we are willing to continue our awakening through the practice of AA's 12 steps. And then, Jerry, you're on 85.
Okay, life is not a dead end. When a man or a woman has a spiritual awakening, the most important meaning of it is that he has now become able to do, feel, and believe that which he could not do before on his unaided strength and resources alone. He has been granted a gift which amounts to a new state of consciousness and being. He has been set on a path which tells him he is really going somewhere, that life is not a dead end, not something to be endured or mastered. In a very real sense, he has been transformed because he has laid hold of a source of strength which had hitherto been denied himself.
Okay. I'm going to read 101, and then Jerry's going to do 152. The spiritual angle. How often do we sit in AA meetings and hear the speaker declare, "But I haven't yet gotten the spiritual angle"? Prior to this statement, he has described a miracle of transformation which has occurred in him, not only as release from alcohol, but a complete change in his whole attitude toward life and the living of it. It is apparent to everyone else present that he has received a great gift, and that this gift is all out of proportion to anything that may be expected from simple AA participation. So we in the audience smile and say to ourselves, well, that guy is just reeking with a spiritual angle, except that he doesn't seem to know it yet. Okay, 152.
Okay, miraculous power. Deep down in every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of a God. It may be obscured by the calamity, by pomp, by worship of other things, but in some form or other, it is there. For faith in a power greater than ourselves and miraculous demonstrations of that power in human lives are facts as old as man himself. Faith may often be given through inspired teaching or a convincing personal example of its fruits. It may sometimes be had through reason. For instance, many clergymen believe that St. Thomas Aquinas actually proved God's existence by sheer logic. But what can one do when all those channels fail? This was my own grievous dilemma. It was only when I came fully to believe that I was powerless over alcohol, only when I appealed in a God who would just might exist, that I experienced a spiritual awakening. This freedom giving experience came first, and then faith followed afterward. A gift indeed.
Okay, I'm going to read 168, and then Jerry's going to do 171. Accepting God's gifts. Though many theologians hold that sudden spiritual experiences amount to a special distinction, if not a divine appointment of some sort, I question this view. Every human being, no matter what his attributes for good or evil, is a part of the divine spiritual economy. Therefore, each of us has his place, and I cannot see that God intends to exalt one over another. So it is necessary for all of us to accept whatever positive gifts we receive with a deep humility, always bearing in mind that our negative attitudes were first necessary as a means of reducing us to such a state that we would be ready for a gift of the positive ones via the conversion experience. Your own alcoholism and immense deflation that finally resulted are indeed the foundation upon which your spiritual experience rests. 171.
Dividends and mysteries. The AA preoccupation with sobriety is sometimes misunderstood. To some, this single virtue appears to be the sole dividend of our fellowship. We are thought to be dried up drunks who otherwise have changed little or not at all. For the better, such a surmise widely misses the truth. We know that permanent sobriety can be attained only by a most revolutionary change in the life and method of the individual, by a spiritual awakening that can banish the desire to drink. You are asking yourself, as all of us must, who am I? Where am I? Whence do I go? The process of enlightenment is usually slow, but in the end, our seeking always brings a finding. These great mysteries are, after all, enshrined in complete simplicity. The willingness to grow is the essence of all spiritual development.
All righty. I'm going to do 178, and Jerry's going to do 182. Down to earth. Those of us who have spent much time in the world of spiritual make-believe have eventually seen the childishness of it. This dream world has been replaced by a great sense of purpose, accompanied by a growing consciousness of the power of God in our lives. We have come to believe He would like us to keep our heads in the clouds with Him, but that our feet ought to be firmly planted on earth. That is where our fellow travelers are, and that is where our work must be done. These are the realities for us. We have found nothing incompatible between a powerful spiritual experience and a life of sane and happy usefulness. You're on 182, I hope.
Okay. The reality of spiritual experience. Perhaps you raise the question of hallucination versus the divine imagery of a genuine spiritual experience. I doubt if anyone has authoritatively defined what an hallucination really is. However, it is certain that all recipients of spiritual experiences declares for their reality. The best evidence of that reality is in the subsequent fruits. Those who receive these gifts of grace are very much changed people, almost invariably for the better. This can scarcely be said of those who hallucinate. Some might think me presumptuous when I say that my own experience is real. Nevertheless, I can surely report that in my own life and in the lives of countless others, the fruits of the experience have been real, and the benefactions beyond reckoning. Okay.
All righty. I'm on 217, and then you're going to do 225. 217. Hope born from hopelessness. Letter to Dr. Carl Jung. Most conversion experiences, whatever their variety, do have a common denominator of ego collapse at depth. The individual faces an impossible dilemma. In my case, the dilemma had been created by my compulsive drinking, and the deep feeling of hopelessness had been vastly deepened by my doctor. It was dependent still more by my alcoholic friend when he acquainted me with your verdict of hopelessness respecting Roland H. In the wake of my spiritual experience, there came a vision of a society of alcoholics. If each sufferer were to carry the news of the scientific hopelessness of alcoholism to each new prospect, he might be able to lay every newcomer wide open to a transforming spiritual experience. This concept proved to be the foundation of such success as AA has since achieved. 225.
225. The answer in the mirror. While drinking, we were certain that our intelligence, backed by our willpower, could rightly control our inner lives and guarantees us success in the world around us. The brave philosophy wherein each man played God sounded good in the speaking, but I still had to meet the acid test. How well did it actually work? One good look in the mirror was answer enough. My spiritual awakening was electrically sudden and absolutely convincing. At once, I became a part, if only in a tiny part, of a cosmos that was ruled by justice and love in the person of God. No matter what had been the consequences of my own willingness and ignorance or those of my fellow travelers on earth, this was still the truth. Such was the new and positive assurance, and this has never left me.
Okay, I'm 242, and then you're going to do 246. Let go absolutely. After failure on my part to dry up any drunks, Dr. Silkworth reminded me of Professor William James' observation that true transforming spiritual experiences are nearly always founded upon calamity and collapse. He's quoting, "Stop preaching at them." Dr. Silkworth said, "And give them the hard medical facts first. This may soften them up at depths so they will be willing to do anything to get well. Then they may accept those spiritual ideas of yours and even a higher power. We beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our own ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely." 246.
246, instinct to live. When men and women pour so much alcohol into themselves that they destroy their lives, they commit a most unnatural act. Defying their instinctive desire for self-preservation, they seem bent upon self-destruction. They work against their own deepest instincts. As they are progressively humbled by the terrific beating administered by alcohol, the grace of God can enter them and expel their obsession. Here, their powerful instinct to live can cooperate fully with their Creator's desire to give them new life. The central characteristics of this spiritual experience is that it gives the recipient a new and better motivation out of all proportion to any process of discipline, belief, or faith. Their experience cannot make us whole at once. They are a rebirth to a fresh and certain opportunity.
Okay. I'm going to do 2-4. No, you just did 246. I'm 256, and you're going to do 281. A special experience. It was the receipt of a tremendous mystic experience or illumination, and at first it was very natural for me to feel that this experience staked me out as somebody very special. But now I look back upon this tremendous event, I can only feel very grateful. It now seems clear that the only special feature of my experience were its suddenness and the overwhelming and immediate conviction that it carried. In all the other respects, however, I'm sure that my own experience was essentially like that received by any AA member who has strenuously practiced our recovery program. Surely the grace he receives is also of God. The only difference is that he becomes aware of his gift more gradually. And then your 281.
Ourselves as individuals. There is only one sure test of all spiritual experiences. By their fruits ye shall know them. This is why I think we should question no one's transformation, whether it be sudden or gradual, nor should we demand anyone's special type for ourselves, because experience suggests that we are apt to receive whatever may be the most useful for our own needs. Human beings are never quite alike, so each of us, when making an inventory, will need to determine what this individual character defects are. Having found the shoes that fit, we ought to step into them and walk with a new confidence that he is at last on the right track.
Okay, we have our final reading on 313. In the sunlight at last. When the thought was expressed that there might be a God personal to me, I didn't like the idea. So my friend Ebby made what seemed a novel suggestion. He said, "Why don't you choose your own conception of God?" That statement hit me hard. It melted the icy intellectual mountain in whose shadow I had lived and shivered many years. I stood in the sunlight at last. It may be possible to find explanations of spiritual experience such as ours, but I have often tried to explain my own and have succeeded only in giving the story of it. I know the feeling it gave me and the result it has brought, but I realize I may never fully understand its deeper why and how.